What's up, everyone? It is Nico and my friend Joel here. I'm super pumped because this one is going to be a complete value add. So if you're tuning in or if you're watching this after the fact, you are in for a treat today. My friend, welcome in.
It's great to be here, Nico. Appreciate the invitation, and man, I'm really hoping I'm able to bring some value here. So
No
I'm sure
question, no
I'm
question
sure
that you
both
are.
of us together, working together, high value, high
Oh,
value content.
absolutely. There's not been one conversation in the last 4 or 5 months that we've been friends that I have not gained something from. So tell me and the audience a little bit more about you. I know the story, but tell us about you.
Yeah, awesome. So I've been on LinkedIn since 2011, and I started on LinkedIn as a college senior, and really just use the platform to connect with people locally. And really, my original intent for LinkedIn was to land an internship. So
Hmm.
I'm sure many people can relate to that. A lot of people are on LinkedIn because they're looking for a job. They're looking for clients. We're all looking for something on the platform. So that was
Absolutely.
my original intent. I think in 2011 the platform was a lot different. Obviously, there was no video. The content just really it wasn't there. I think it was more a lot of jokes, a lot of like just sharing article, but there wasn't really a lot of content. So I didn't really get into connecting with people and kind of putting out content until fairly recent. So that would probably be the last 6 months. And as far as professionally, I started off in the banking world. So I got my degree in finance, went into banking for about 5 years, and then I found my true what I want to call like my true passion, my true love, which is recruiting. And I've been in recruiting for the last 5 years. So um, as far as our connection, I mean, I think what we got connected must have been 4 or 5 months ago, like when I first started really looking into connecting and engaging and connecting with other people's content. I think the last 5 months has been great. It's obviously I've met lots of people. I've met just tons of amazing creators, and
Mm.
then also just been able to connect with so many professionals that I wouldn't have if I hadn't have really dove into this platform. So super excited about LinkedIn.
So let's talk about that because as I told you before we jumped on, I was introduce yourself and we're gonna give a quick little tip. I think you hit upon something interesting, which is you got started 4 or 5, let's 6 months ago, right?
6 months, yeah.
Why did you end up doing that? Because there's a lot of people here that they've heard me and other content creators push the fact that you got to be on, but you are in the recruiting world, and like we've talked about traditionally, it's not been the sexiest world. But you decided, I wanted to. What was that, reason, and how did you get started?
Yeah, no, that's great. So the recruiting industry, I mean, all you got to do is run through your LinkedIn feed, and some job seeker is going to be probably bashing a recruiter for not getting back to them, or a recruiter might be bashing a candidate for ghosting them. So there's almost like this battle between
Mm.
recruiting and everybody else. And because of that, I think a lot of time the recruiting and particularly headhunting world just gets a really bad rap. And I think a lot of that is really validated by just people's behavior. And
Mm.
so really what got me into LinkedIn was something completely different. Like somebody had posted, and Mark Metry, I'm sure everybody knows, he had
Love that guy.
posted his comeback story, and um, just one day, I think it was a Saturday, he just posted his comeback story, and I happened to just see it right as he posted. So it said like now, like he just posted it, and I read his comeback story, and it really inspired me, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to share my comeback story, and I did as just a comment on his post. And because he's got such a great following, and because I was the first person to post a comment, it got, I think, like 17 or 20 likes, which at
Oh,
that
that's
time was
awesome.
like, I'd never even put anything out. So I was like, this is crazy. And then from that, I started getting messages from people like just basically saying, your story was really impactful. Like, I'm going through depression. I'm going through these really, really hard situations. And I think when I received messages like that for the first time, suddenly I went from my original kind of thought 6 months ago, which was basically social media is kind of a waste of time,
Mm.
to like suddenly like a light flashed in my mind. I was like, wow, someone actually got impacted by just me sharing. And really from that point on, it really encouraged. It's like I said, it was like a light went off, and I just went, wow, this is a really powerful tool that can really impact people in a positive way. And particularly like in my industry, where it's very, there's not a lot of positive. There are some for sure, but there can be just a lot of negativity surrounding headhunting and recruiting. It's like, this is an opportunity for me to impact people and kind of show the human side, which is why I have Joel Lalgee, the human headhunter, the human side of the recruiting business. And there's some great headhunters out there. There's some great people that are genuinely looking to help out, but I have my own story within that too. And it's not, and I wanted to share more of my personal story so people could feel free to share theirs as well if they feel comfortable. So sorry, that's a little bit long-winded there.
No,
but,
no, I love that, because you're talking about the human element, and it's something that I think that these platforms can do two things, right? They can bring us together, or they can push us away. You and I think, have embraced the fact that this is just another platform. This is just another networking event that we're going to, right? We're just showing up in a different place. Walk us through, though, because you went through, and if my memory serves me correct, and you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, there was about a couple weeks where you started posting, you saw a little traction. There's then inevitably the boom moment, right? Where you're like, do I continue or do I stop? How were you able to push through? Because I know a lot of people get started, and then 2 weeks in, they're like, I don't get any likes or no comments. I should just give up. How did you push through that?
I think originally when I started posting, and because I hear a lot, like, here's the secret, you got to post every day.
Yeah.
And I think obviously like posting and showing up every day really, really is important. But to me, that what kept me going in the early stages was actually engaging on other people's content, and from engaging with other people, then making connections and then taking those connections offline. So that's really kind of what encouraged me to kept going. And I think originally when I first started, I was pretty green into just content creation anyway and putting things out. So it really wasn't my intent to get likes or comments. Like, it was and it wasn't. Like, if 20 people showed up, or if 5 people showed up and liked it and commented, I was super happy, because it was just, oh, great. Like, I don't have an expectation. And I think, what really kept me going through that 2 weeks was, or that really probably the first couple months, in terms of like, is this worth it? I think meeting other people and connecting on their content. And then I started to see a follow through where people, maybe I show up on someone's post 3 or 4 times and it really resonates with me, and we connect in the comments. Then suddenly they're starting to show up on my content, because what I found was it was almost like a magnet for like-minded people. So a lot of the people who were creating content, and then I'm liking it, I'm engaging with it, we're having a conversation, suddenly we're making deeper connections. And then when I post something, they're recognizing who I am, and because we're already like-minded, or we think similarly about business or future trends. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. So and then too, like, for me, it's a really new concept, like just creation in general, in terms of content creation. And it's been kind of like a therapy for me, if I can say that. And I know I heard that in a podcast, Chantel Sumis, she said that in a podcast one time. She just said, sometimes like creation can be therapy. And I think when she said that, in my mind, I was like, she's totally right, because that's what it's been for me. And it's taken my kind of my job, which I do love, but sometimes it can just feel like you're going in circles in whatever you're doing. And suddenly there's an element of something new. I'm using my mind in a different way than I would have in the past. And just for me personally, that's something that I really enjoy to do. So probably if there has been a big spike in engagement over time, but if that engagement wasn't there, I'd still create, because I just enjoy it more than anything else. And it's cool when you do something that you enjoy and people connect with it as well, because I enjoy both facets of that, the creation and the connection.
And I'll the only thing I'll add to that is, we only care about the people. Like, that's really it. Like, what you and I do is, this is just another medium to reach more people that we want to connect with. So I think you're absolutely on it. And the one thing I want you to talk about a little bit more is, how do you think about creating? Because, I think we all
Sure.
have our own little hacks and whatnot, but how do you go about it? Because it can be intimidating. Like, if I tell you the post right now, you might be like, oh, what do I do? So, like, how do you think about content creation and like those ideas?
Yeah, man, it's super interesting. I think I really believe in my my ideas too, and I think I need to put that out there. And I think that's a big step. I think there's a lot of people who they'll have a thought or something in their mind and they automatically doubt it, and they'll be like,
Ooh,
ah, it's stupid, or like that's just my own thought.
no one's gonna
And
like this and stuff like that.
exactly. And I think the way I've approached anything is if I have an interesting thought
Mm,
or something or an interesting idea about something, that to me is how I just start building that content around it. And this, I'm definitely not advising this for everybody either. And I think having a plan obviously is a lot better
mm,
and a lot more strategic. I know for me, again, because creating the content is such a therapy, like I actually just love going to the blank slate and then
mm,
just thinking about like what is there like socially that's going on, or like what is there. I just think a lot about like our society and the changes that are going on in society. And then obviously I post a lot about recruiting and the things that are wrong with recruiting and how can we change it. And then so just really whatever kind of thought comes into my mind, my first reaction to it is, oh, that's interesting. And then I build from there, where I think a lot of people, if they think something or an idea pops into their head, their first then automatic reaction is usually to put it down and just think,
mm.
ah, that's useless. And I've got a lot of friends who are artists, and I think it's a similar thing. Like they really believe that they are amazing at what they do. Like, all my musician friends, like they think their song is the greatest thing.
The next,
And a lot
the
of
next
a lot of
single ladies like theme
ex-
song.
exactly. It's like like people who are creative, like the biggest thing that separates them from most people is they just really believe they're creative, and in believing they're creative, then they are creative. And I think so many times people like they limit themselves in what creation is. And it's just like, okay, you have a thought, build on it. And then you have an idea, build on it. And then be bold too. Like for me, I have like a very no fear mentality. Like if I post something, I'm not really that bothered if people don't like it. And if they don't like it and they want to discuss it, perfect, because then I'm open
You're
and
always
willing to change
growing
my
and
mind.
changing. Yeah, yeah.
Ex- exactly. Um,
Oh,
and
God.
so I think, and I think the last thing is just that pressure piece. Like I think a lot of people put just pressure on themselves,
Mm,
like oh, this next post it's got to be the best, or it's got to be this. And I think you take away that pressure and you're just yourself, then I look at it. If people want to connect with it, great. And if they don't, like in some ways, that's great as well, because then you can learn and you can go, okay, this didn't resonate with people. Or you can go, you know what? I actually care that it resonated with people. Like
mm,
this is me expressing myself. So I think there's a lot in there. And I think, particularly with LinkedIn, I mean, I'm on other platforms as well and not doing anywhere near as good, because I think LinkedIn, from a professional aspect and the platform as a whole, I think there's a lot of fear associated with posting.
mm,
And I think the people who have stepped out of that fear and gone, yeah, it's a professional network, but I have professional value to bring.
mm.
Those are the people that are doing really, really well. And then there's a lot of people who are like, I don't know, like, is this professional? Is this good? Is this bad? And I think some of us have just cut that out and gone, you know what? I know I've got value to bring. I'm going to bring it.
Yeah. The tip that helped me the most was that 99.999% of people will never see anything that you do because they're so fixated on their
Exactly.
own life and stuff like that. So that when I heard that, you can take that two ways, right? One, it's the best because it's like, okay, I have so much flexibility, but the other side is like, oh, like why am I doing this? So I think you're absolutely right. And you know, my next question was, how do you feel about this platform? Because something that does hold everyone or most people back is that they don't know
Yeah.
if their content is appropriate for this platform. Talk to me through that, because the nice thing is I've seen you talk about things that happen in your personal life, which business is both professional and personal, right?
Exactly.
Your personal life impacts your professional life and vice versa. So walk me through, if someone comes to you and says, I want to start doing this, but I don't think I'm going to say, I don't think what I have to say is professional. What would you say to that?
I mean, I just went to a local college and gave him a little bit of a presentation on just on LinkedIn and just really from the mindset of like, you can use this to get an internship like I did, like here's some tips how to connect with people. And that question came up because we did talk a little bit about content creation, and the question was, well, isn't it a professional website? And I'm like, well, or a professional social media platform.
Mm.
And to me, what's changing actually is like what professional means. And
Ooh, yeah,
if you ask somebody like, well, if anytime someone says that to me, I just go, well, what does professional mean?
Hmm.
And it's like, it stuns them for a second because they can't actually define what professional means. And then I go, well, you think that in your mind, professional is a suit, a tie, very rigid, like very formal. But you know what? What I see the trend is with a lot of hiring managers, with a lot of recruiters that I work with, and business leaders, is there's a changing landscape in business anyway.
Mm.
And so, 20, 10, 15 years ago, wearing a sweatshirt to work would be, it'd be, oh, you can't do that. Now, a lot of places are saying, hey, we have more relaxed work dress codes, or we have a more relaxed environment. We cater to you. We want you to feel at home. We want you to express yourself. So I think it's important to understand that, you got to define what professional is. And then I think in terms of how I approach it, I add personal in because, you know what, if I meet somebody for the first time and I'm building a conversation with them or starting a conversation, the first stuff that comes up is always personal. Like, hey, like, do you have any kids, or do you have family? Or I was, it happens at business meetings all the time. That's how I connect with people. Like, well, what do you like outside of work? Or what are you passionate about? Or, oh, you have a family? Awesome. And so I think it's unusual that we would have those types of conversations in the workplace or with work colleagues, but we're afraid to post anything personal on LinkedIn. Now, what I would say with that is, for me, the personal stuff connects with way more people. But I feel comfortable with that, and I think a lot of people don't, and I think that's okay. But I think the more, like, I think that trend is going to change anyway, where the business landscape's changing. What professional is, I think a lot more people want to feel like they can share who they are, and I think as long as you have that balance, and I make sure, like, I'm not going to go on like a 3-week tear where everything is just personal.
Hmm.
I always bring it back to recruiting. And if I do tell a personal story, I'm still trying to bring it back to something that ties into what I do professionally. So I think it's a balance, and it's whatever platform you're on. Obviously, like LinkedIn is a lot to do with, it's everything to do with business connections and business value. So you have to always do that. But to me, people make up businesses, and it's,
Absolutely.
Warren Buffett, all these guys who are at the top will say your people matter more than anything. And so, I think a lot of people have fear of their bosses seeing things. And I'm like, if your boss gets mad at you for sharing something about yourself, I mean, maybe you've got an amazing job, or maybe there's something I'm not seeing. But if that's the approach of your boss, then is that somewhere you really want to work?
Hmm.
Like, would you like? And it's the same with coworkers. Like, if they start really getting on you about things, I'm like, why would you want to work in that environment? Now, obviously, my fear with that is somebody would take that and like write something and then they get fired, or
Hmm.
and that can happen. So I think you have to use your own discretion. But at the end of the day, I know that even stuff that I post that is personal, there's a line, right? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
there's a border with that as well. So
It's something, it's funny that you're talking about that, because that's something we talked about, I think last week when we had a call. And it's so true. It's the fact that no one controls this, right? Each person, each individual is an individual for a reason. You might work at a company, but these platforms are a medium and expression for you. So I actually want to change the conversation and go
yeah.
into more of what you're seeing inside of the world of recruiting, how social media is playing into that, how basically, long story short, I want to get some tips and tricks for people who might be looking for a new job and want to utilize these platforms to make that easier. So walk us through what you're seeing in that world.
Yeah. So I think the first thing, so if we approach it from, I want to approach it from like the business landscape as far as recruiting
Cool.
and social media. And I think there's a lot more companies, I think, that are understanding that through social media, obviously you can communicate a lot about who your people are. And I think it's going to be a growing trend because so many people are obviously interacting on social media. And I think there's a lot of marketers out there who see the value in social media for selling products and selling services. In fact, I think probably 95% of our marketing budget is you're trying to get people to be interested in your brand, your products, and it's leading to sales. So, but where I think that's been just a big kind of everyone's forgot is really on like the employer brand and like what your workplace is like and who your people are. And because there's always that drive for sales and more business, marketing has just really been focused on products and services. But I think now I'm seeing more of a trend where it started with the culture videos. Like everybody's got a culture video. I think the problem with the culture video is just like anything else, any other content.
It's promotional.
It's yeah, and it's. I think the hard thing is it's like with any content, you can create a great video, but that's not necessarily like biggest challenge. The biggest challenge is getting somebody to watch the great video. So you could have the most awesome culture video buried on your career page, but you've got to get people to your career page. And so it's good. Like people have gone, okay, we've got a culture video, we'll share it a couple times, and we don't know what to do with it. But I think there's more of a trend now where companies are understanding that, again, your people make up your company. So the more we can put our people out there in a real way, the more we can represent our company, the better it's going to do for us in recruiting. And I think recruiting, it's very right now, it's very reactive. So you see it all the time. These ATS systems will receive thousands of applications, and then you have one recruiter that's probably handling 20 job recs, and they're just like, okay, I got thousands of applications. Who am I going to go with? Who am I going to go with? Very reactive. On the flip side, you have headhunters that are very proactive, almost like a sales function, where we're cold calling, we're reaching out to people at work. And I think as time goes by, people's communication methods have changed, preferences. Most people I deal with want to deal with text messages. They like messages. And I think as that changes, a lot more younger people coming into the workplace, they want an experience. They want to know about your company in a real way. And so there's a lot of room to show your company who you are through social. For job seekers, where LinkedIn comes in, I think the worst mistake that you can make is like to make, well, I've seen somebody who made it work, and they were like all over the place. Like they started like a movement for themselves and were like, here's my resume, like share it. And they eventually got a job. And so I think that was awesome. To me personally, I think you can do whatever you want. But to me personally, I think the power of LinkedIn is like connecting and getting to know people. So I suggest to people, and these are tips from a lot of career coaches I've heard. So this isn't all just my idea, but it makes sense. If you're connecting with someone, it's that whole thing. Like you don't want to direct sell them. So what I would never do, or what I advise people not to do, is reach out to recruiters and say, hey, can you help me find a job? And I think it's like direct selling. Nobody wants to be direct sold. So we're seeing a lot more people like, if you direct sell me in the first message, I unfollow you, I block you, whatever. Same thing. And I think you got to view the job process as a sales process, as a marketing process. So if you're looking to be in marketing, or you're looking to be in sales, your LinkedIn profile is actually an awesome way to market yourself and show that you know how to market yourself, number one. If you're going for a sales role, the approach that you use on LinkedIn can be influential in showing that you actually know how to sell yourself and you know how to connect with people. Now, if you're in another field, maybe you're accounting or engineering, or IT, let's say, find people who are in those roles and don't, connect with them, and don't lead with, hey, I'm looking for a job, can you help me out? Like, no, nobody is, to me, that's a big turn off. It's like
busy,
direct selling.
right? Like it's like your default's like, yes, but I'm so busy. Like you have to care about putting a roof over your head and feeding your family as much as you want to help. You just we don't have
exactly
all the time in the world. So I totally agree on that. So
and I think when you lead with it, there's a big push for like mentorship. So I think you've got to know your position. So if you're right out of college, and I talk to a lot of these college kids about it, connect locally with people who are like in positions. So like you want to go you want to be a financial advisor, find some financial advisors in town and say, hey, I'd love to take you out for coffee just to hear about like what your job is. And that most in my career, the positions that I see getting filled that I can't fill, they always come from referrals and people who they know. So the more you can just get to know people, you go in there with the intent of like, I genuinely want to connect with this person, and I want to like see if we connect. If you connect with them and they like you, the next time there's an opening and they, hey, we need an intern or we need, you know, this person, they're going to think of you naturally because they like you. I think where people get really, and it's hard, right? And I think this is a problem for salespeople as well, is we're like so desperate for what we want out of the outcome. So like we need to get the sale that you just forget that the best way to sell somebody on anything is to sell them on yourself. And once you've sold them on you and you get along, it's like the sales process is seamless. And don't be afraid to ask, obviously, but it's like get to know the person too. And people are willing to give time if they believe that it's going to be mutually beneficial. And for a lot of people, like mentoring is mutually beneficial. So yeah, that'd be my biggest tip. And like I said, I think I did see somebody, you know, when I first was on LinkedIn, and she was like, I mean, she's got a hashtag going, and it was like, I mean, it was intense. It was like every day, my resume and like all this sort of stuff. But, you know, she got a job eventually, and it worked for her. And I think, hey, whatever it takes, whatever your strategy is, you know, you got to do something different.
But yeah, and the one thing I'll add to that is that's an anomaly, right? That's not they're kids. They're you know, my age have $1 billion companies, but doesn't mean like everyone my age will be a billionaire, right? So it's good to know, but the reason I asked for you specifically is you're in the trenches each and every day. So I want to be very cognizant of your time because I know we got Jet in a second. What's your last thought when it comes to content creation? You know, marketing, whether it's headhunting. What's the one last golden nugget you can give the audience today?
Man, I would say that the biggest thing that has really grown, number one, my inspiration, and I think just the overall engagement with people, which I think most people are probably looking for a boost in engagement. It's taking calls offline for no other purpose to connect. So Nico, you're the perfect example. When we first connected, we had a conversation. It was like a half an hour conversation. It was a phone conversation. It was pretty quick. Neither of us were in there for anything other than just making the connection. And since then, we've had multiple phone calls. Our relationship's grown. And now it's to the point where if I knew of a job opening in your field or there was something I could do to help you, I'm going to think of you. And so I think take it offline, keep it genuine. And I think if you post who you are, when you connect with people, it makes it even more powerful. So if you're posting really positive things and you're a really negative person, it's really weird. If you just be yourself in your post and your content, meet with people, build those relationships. That to me is the power, the true power of LinkedIn. And I think it's what separates it from a lot of other platforms too. I think it's a lot easier to get a hold of people, have business conversations, find collaborators and like-minded people. I think it's a lot easier than other platforms. So that'd be my tip.
That is awesome, and the one thing I'll add to that is it's a long game, right? Like I didn't try it and jump on those phone calls for something in the short term. I'm building this for a real long-term relationship. I know that's what you're doing too. And these platforms enable that. So, my friend, thank you so much. Besides here on LinkedIn, where's the best place for someone to get hold of you?
You know what? I'd say LinkedIn, it's probably the best place. Obviously, I've got my email. I think sending me an email works really well. It takes a little effort to look up my email, but if you send emails to my Gmail. And I do have a TikTok account too. Any support on TikTok would be appreciated because like I'm so bad with it.
I same.
But you know what? It's so funny. I actually got a friend who he's a photographer and he's like, really just smart, and he's done this like comedy angle with it, and the guy's been on it for I want to say 3 weeks, and he's got 100,000 followers, 3.2 million likes, but he's like super creative, and it's like he's just doing a great job with it, and it's inspiring to me because I'm like, I wish I could be more creative in that way and like understand that market. But yeah, so TikTok, LinkedIn, and then I I do have an Instagram too that I'm not really active on, but I'd say LinkedIn and my email would be the best places. Yes,
Awesome.
sir.
Well, I appreciate it. I will kick us. We'll talk for a couple minutes after this. But my friend, thank
Yeah.
you so much for giving all this wisdom. And yeah, like I said, Joel's one of those guys where you just need to know this guy because he's really making a big splash in not just the LinkedIn community, but the headhunting/recruitment industry. So definitely connect with him. He's a great person.
Thanks a lot, brother.
Of course.
Means a lot.
Oh
Means
no,
a lot, man.
it's the truth. That's that's a part of this, right? This is real. So we'll chat for a couple minutes after. Thank you everyone for being on live today. We had a bunch of people, so I appreciate everyone for being here and have the best day ever.
Yes. See you guys.
I guess.